today to talk about Sunset Overdrive, and I'm with...
I'm Marcus Smith. I'm the creative director of said Sunset Overdrive.
Okay, well, Sunset Overdrive, I have not played a game quite like Sunset Overdrive. It's one of those games where I can't, like, point to very obvious things and be like, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this. You guys are going for a very distinct feel. And I really appreciate that.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
We really appreciate hearing you being appreciative.
Good, good. The game has a very distinct aesthetic. It's sort of like a punk comic book, neon-infused game.
Sure.
And it's very different than sort of the Pixar-esque like Ratchet and Clank world and the grim Resistance world. Yeah. What made you guys want to explore this sort of aesthetic style?
I mean, I think for me personally and Drew Murray, the game director, when we were originally coming up with the idea, it was a lot more sort of straight, and that was fine, but I think the world doesn't need any more zombie apocalypse games. I mean, there are people who do it great, so I don't want to like step on their toes, but we didn't need to do that. That's ground that's tread. So we were looking for something different, and one of the ideas was, you know, when you watch I Am Legend and Will Smith's hitting golf balls off an aircraft carrier, or Charlton Heston's driving around a car in the empty streets of LA, it just looks like fun to me. So the idea of like, what if the end times was a place that is like your playground? All the laws are gone, all the social norms are gone. How do you reinvent yourself? What do you do differently than your day-to-day life now? So fun in the end times was kind of the way that we went off on a tangent. And everything came from there, from the energy of the music to the style of the game, because you can't have fun in the end times if it looks like Resistance 3 or Last of Us, or, you know, that grim reality. You really do want something fun and inviting. And thinking back of, you know, like Dreamcast, Sega games of the late 90s, the super, super fun, bright. I always wanted to go back to the Crazy Taxi world or Jet Grind, Jet Set Radio world, because they were inviting. They were just super fun and vibrant and much more interesting than my real life, actually.
It's funny, I was streaming the game yesterday, and someone brought it up that it feels like a Dreamcast game, and they didn't mean that in a negative way. No. It was just that sort of rebellious energy that some of those games had.
And I think there's a nostalgia there too. Like it felt very much like a golden age of gaming, where we were leaving the arcade kill you in 90 seconds to get your quarter, and we were going into, you know, the consoles really were kind of their own identity. So I think in a lot of ways it was a golden age that we're sort of hearkening back to a little bit.
The thing for me, the core of Sunset Overdrive is the traversal.
Yes.
I mean, how many shooters, or at least games where you shoot things, are you not on the ground? You are in the air, or you are grinding on something. It's like you don't really have a lot of opportunities to like line up a shot. You kind of just gotta get into the rhythm of doing everything and keeping your momentum going.
Yes, and that was huge for us. I mean, that was one of the things. There's a lot of games that do have high traversal elements, like Infamous. You're flying around, you got superpowers. You still kind of slow down to do combat, and you still are kind of doing cover-based combat. And we were looking for something that was more like Tony Hawk with guns, which is to say, not only are you aware in Tony Hawk of just what's around you, but you have to be strategizing the movement set, right? You're like, okay, to get up there, to get that letter, I'm going to have to take this ramp, grind on this, do this, and we wanted to see what would happen if we incorporated that kind of thinking and strategy into combat. And through trial and error, we found something that worked pretty well, which is what you're playing now.
One of my biggest pet peeves when I play a game is when you can do all these really cool things, and it's just kind of presented as this super optional, like, do it if you can, whatever, and then you kind of find a far more efficient way of doing things that's a lot less interesting. In Sunset Overdrive, the more you kind of mix up the way you're traversing the environment, the more you bounce and grind, and then you bounce and grind in different ways while killing a lot of dudes at once. You have sort of this meter, this overcharge meter, or I'm sorry, this style amp meter, style meter, I'm sorry. It's this meter that fills up. Meter. And you get more powerful, you get more options as you do it, and it's far easier to take out guys. But at the same time, on the flip end of that is, you know, there are other ways of doing things. If you die or you're getting frustrated, like, you don't have to be an absolute master to get through it. And how do you guys sort of find that balance between like letting people explore everything that's there and not like frustrating them?
You know, it's a huge, I think it's a debate that happens on every game where you're right. There's always the idea that you have all these advanced moves that we always kind of think of it as like really good players are going to play it and do it like this. But Joe Average also has to be able to get through. And so for us internally, there was one of these things where we spent a good chunk of the game in the beginning kind of breaking you of your habits of trying to stand still on the flat ground and iron sight or duck behind cover. And for the longest time, we had all these debates of, will we allow people to do that and kind of have a lesser experience but still succeed, or should we just really be punitive and kind of teach them this is not that game? And so we ended up with this, we're kind of abusive in the beginning, to be honest, because we do have, everybody's so used to cover mechanics and flat ground iron sight shooting that in order to get them to play the game the way it's meant to be played, we have to break them of that habit. So for us, I think there was just no middle ground. We had a middle ground, and people would play it that way, and that's not a fun way to play the game, and you wouldn't really experience it all.
Definitely, and this is more of a comment than a question,
Sure.
but in the very beginning of the game, it is that sort of like sharp push, because you have like pretty early on, you have this section where a bunch of enemies are coming in, and you have to survive and prevent them from getting to this point.
Yeah.
And you just can't really do it if you're staying on the ground shooting.
That's right.
I'm sure someone can prove me wrong, but
Players are badass and they'll do whatever.
Right, but it's easier if you're playing the game the way it's meant to be played, and I really appreciate that.
Cool.
The other thing is, if you do find yourself kind of bouncing on the same thing, or you're on the ground, the game will tell you like, hey, there are arrows here. You can do this stuff. It's a nice little reminder.
Yeah, and eventually the enemies will do it too. Like if you're grinding too much, enemies will hop up on the wire and they'll knock you down. And there's more and more ways in which once you get comfortable with a certain strategy and you're like, oh, I'm just going to do this over and over again. The game will change your strategy.
Definitely. I think as a player, it's very easy to kind of get into a rhythm where you just sort of approach every situation the same.
Sure.
And I think this sort of philosophy applies to the weapons as well, because if you're just using the same weapon and gets everything, it's really hard to take some certain stuff down. And so the game is telling you, without telling you, hey, use something else.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's strategy involved in everything, from the weapons you're using to how you're doing. I mean, the bottom line is, if you are using traversal to have that spatial strategy, and you're using the right weapons, and you're crafting the right amps, you're super powerful. You're like way more powerful than the enemies. Right. So it really is a way that we reward people for doing the things that this game was designed to do really, really well.
Sort of a question kind of going in with that is, when you die, it's pretty forgiving. You kind of just pop up right around where you were, and you get back into it, and there's no super explicit penalty. Why did you guys decide to do it that way?
Well, that's the flip side of being, we want to reward players for playing the game this way because that's the way it was designed. But on the other hand, we don't want to be so abusive for people who are trying to explore and are trying to try new things. You try something new and it doesn't work out. We didn't want to be like, back to the beginning, sucker. Here we go. Dark Souls all over. Get in there. It's a game that is kind of it's kind of a throwback, I guess, to earlier arcade games, but a little bit less punitive.
Right.
Say,
You're trying to encourage, not
exactly.
like prohibit that experimentation.
Yeah, totally.
Sure.
We're not into whipping people.
Right.
Too much.
Right.
A little bit.
Another thing that I really appreciate in the game is personally, I'm not too big on collectibles. Normally, I don't like hunting around, like searching every nook and cranny for this feather or whatever.
You're not OCD like I am.
Well, in Sunset Overdrive, I really like it because traversal is so much fun, and it's the core of the game. And this gives you an excuse if you don't want to do a mission, if you don't want to do a side mission, you can just go and have fun because the traversal is so much fun, while still getting these collectibles which feed into your upgrades. And I like that. I wish more games did that. So many times you do a collectible and it's just like, here's this achievement, thanks for wasting your time.
You have one of 200 red flags.
Right.
Now you have one of 200 white flags.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, looking at open world games, we all play them somewhat different. As I say, I'm super OCD. I'll collect everything. I'll grind my way through to the point where when I get back to the story, I'm way overpowered.
Right.
And that was the thing, is we just said a lot of people play games for different reasons. Let's try to encourage people to go and explore in a way that's not making you go out and find every single one, or the old school call up the strategy line or something like that. We don't want you going to GameFAQs just to see how to play our game. So yeah, collectibles are actually part of an economy that you can use to bypass certain play styles. If you're really into the side quests, that the Night Defense, where you can create amps, awesome, you can do that. Or you can go and collect things and sort of buy your way past.
Well, that's pretty much it for me.
Cool.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, man.
It's been a fun conversation.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to go play more Sunset Overdrive.
Oh, great. Me too.